Celtic are back in Scottish Cup action this weekend and make the short trip to Paisley to play St Mirren in Sunday's 2 o'clock kick-off. It might well just be a welcome break for some of the stress that the league performances have been bringing. This is Tino with the countdown to kick-off, joined here by James and Brydo. Brydo, I'll come to you first. What's your general feeling on how things are going at the moment?
It was good to get the win on Wednesday, which is vital at this time of the season. I just think we're at a stage where it's almost like I think it's either got to click miraculously together, or it's a situation where we just have to keep rolling the sleeves up and, I suppose, fight our way through it as opposed to playing our way through it, because with the players we've got at our disposal at the minute, or the lack of form of them, or the regression we've seen, or lack of commitment or whatever, it's just looking really, really difficult to play the way we want to play and get the results that way. So, yeah, I just think we need to collectively, fans, manager, players, I think we just need to fight our way through to the end of the last two trophies. So, yeah, it's fight as opposed to play through it for me.
I was listening to Brendan Rodgers' press conference just before coming on there, and he was saying that pre-match on Wednesday night before Hibs, he was telling the players, there's 14 league games to go and you need to put your heart and soul into every one of those games. But I'll stay with you just briefly, Brydo, because James didn't think the players were hungry enough, doesn't think they look hungry enough at that moment in time. What do you think about
that? I think some players would have been. I think some players were. I think like Ralston, there's never a question of that. It's more about question marks over his ability, the ceiling of what he can do. But yeah, I'd agree with James. I think there's far too many people that would really rely on not necessarily not showing the commitment. There are players like that not showing commitment. I think Abada is definitely one of those for whatever reason. I think I mentioned that on Twitter yesterday, the day before. I just think that if his head's not in it, then he shouldn't be. We just simply cannot afford passengers. We just don't have the numbers or the quality and the time to afford that. And then there's other players. I think I love Callum McGregor. I don't think commitment's the issue, but it's what he's doing as an example for me isn't good enough. Mid-game or in-game type situations, I just don't think he's doing enough. Certainly since we've came back from the break, and you throw in people out of form, and then the backwards passes. That isn't fighting for the cause. That's not doing your job. Certainly the wingers and the attacking players do your job. Your job is to go and beat their defence and score goals and create chances. And since we've had Ross County, Aberdeen, and then on Wednesday, which I thought it was the worst of the lot, 2 deflected goals and 2 penalties and hardly any other chances to talk about. So the proof's in the pudding, and it's not great at the minute. And I think, yeah, James is spot on. I think there's far too many, not doing enough. And whether that's deliberately not doing enough, or it's a confidence, or it's ability or commitment, that's the 3 things I'd look at: commitment, ability, and confidence. And they're the 3 things, if we're not on the right side of the line of those, that's the 3 things that individually make you look really, really average or worse. And if there's too many of them on the wrong side of that line, which, by the way, I think there's far more on the wrong side of all of those lines than there is then it's going to just be it's producing what we're witnessing every game, and it's really, really hard to either stand in at the game themselves or not talk negatively. You're trying your best not to. We want to be positive. We don't want to just gift the other team trophies and titles. That's not what we're here to do. And I think at the minute we're so close to going down that avenue, and that's why I'm saying it's just got to be roll your sleeves up. And it might actually be if Alistair Johnson's out and guys like Ralston come in, it might actually be a blessing in disguise. I'm not saying he's a better player, but it might be, and maybe how we created the penalty on Wednesday with Ralston's tackle and that type of thing. Perhaps, and Greg Taylor, he's never shucks that either. Perhaps that type of thing might galvanise the team to just win in a slightly different, a very much different way to what we want. But wins are wins. So if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff, Brydo. Just 5 minutes in and James hasn't had a word on edgeways. Let's go to James. James, I'm going to keep you waiting. I'm going to keep you waiting for just one more minute because there's a good comment that's come in from GR, and he says, for me, it's nothing to do with commitment or spirit. The quality of the available first 11 is just absolutely miles off it. That back five is the worst I've seen in maybe a decade. By back five, I presume he means goalie plus back four. I don't think Joe Hart's anything to do with Celtic's problems just now. Actually, he's one of the guys that stepped up. But I would agree in terms of the quality available. I seen something during the week there. I think it was a reply to one of our tweets about the fact that Liam Scales wasn't deemed good enough under Ange, nor was Bernabe, nor was Ralston, and one or two others might feature in that. So they're not good enough for Ange 1 and 2 years ago, but they're now good enough for the first team. And actually, James, I don't think they are good enough, if truth be told, or certainly some of them. It's just a case of needs must at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm long on record that the improvements haven't been made that should have been made, but at the same time, I want to kind of stay in a mindset of transfer window shut. There's nothing to be gained from that discussion. We'll have it again in the summer, and we'll push the board to do something about it in the summer. The team, the back five, the back four, if we even want to just focus on them for leaving Hart out of it, they're more than good enough to handle the best at Aberdeen, the best at Ross County, the best that Hibs have got to offer. So I think it is to do with the commitment and team spirit side of things, because ability-wise, they should all be able to handle the last three teams that we played that we haven't done especially well in. The back four has been coming out with the ball, and there's been no bravery, no movement from the midfielders, the attacking midfielders, and the exact same from the wingers. That's where our problem is. I don't really think we are, we're leaving ourselves slightly exposed at the back. The biggest problem we have is not creating enough chances and scoring enough goals. That's it for me.
I agree. It's Celtic's offensive play that's the problem. We've lost the odd goal in recent games, but we're not leaking goals by any manner of means, and it's the lack of creativity. And we all know how much Celtic's defenders get in terms of possession. Tell you what we'll do. We'll get to the lineup as usual, or our projected lineups as usual, just shortly. And if anyone's joining us on the live show, feel free to let us know what you think the team should be, what your midfield front three would be, anything like that. But in the meantime, I want to come back to you, Brydo. We were chatting, obviously, over the last day or so. You and I were both at Hibs and shared some messages after that. And you've got I don't know if I'd call it a theory, but you've got a proposition as such for a key role that Callum McGregor can play that would see Celtic far more effective in possession. Do you want to give us the headlines of that, Brydo, and we can see what the response may be?
Well, yeah, it's fairly simple, really. I think Callum McGregor is one of the best players we've produced, and I think he's a very, very clever football player. And I really struggle to understand why, and let's use Wednesday as the example, why he is playing in a team and knows it's not working for nearly pretty much the full match, that he's in that position. He cannot control the game. He's not getting on the ball. That's partly because of the tempo we're playing at. We're not playing the passes quick enough to him. But if that's the case, he needs to make that happen. And if it's not happening, or he's surrounded by Hibs players, for example, the striker blocks him off, the two midfielders are pressing against him, they're tucking, whatever, then he needs to then do something to get on the ball. And for me, he has to drop deeper and almost split our two centre halves. And if the ball's with Scales, for example, then Scales essentially pushes more towards the left back side of things, not a full left back, but 3/4 of the way. Now, if Hibs want to sit in, then that's up to Scales to kind of keep driving forward until he draws somebody towards him and starts to open up space. McGregor just vacating that area makes some more space for the likes of O'Reilly to drop deeper, or Bernardo. And before you know it, it just starts to increase the fluency. It also allows Scales or Nawrocki or Welsh to play at a slightly different angle. It was too flat, it's too linear, everything's in front of the defence. We're playing it to where they want us to play it. over to the fullback, out to the winger, not penetrating any of those defensive lines at all. And yeah, okay, we play to McGregor's feet, but it comes back. It's too tight. So for me, he needs to be dictating it by facing the play. And to do that, he needs to drop back 10 or 15 yards and push his two defenders, whoever's got what side it's at. And that opens up a lot more space, especially out wide and in the kind of central area.
Yeah. Do you know, James and I done the post-match, Brydo, and it kind of ties into, you know, what you were saying, James. Liam Scales, and at the time, Stephen Welsh, got so much of the ball. You know, there was some crazy stats doing the rounds about how many passes they'd traded between them. They get so much of the ball, but Hibs were absolutely delighted to let them have the ball. So Hibs just retreated, you know, sat deeper, let those two have it, and the remaining 10 outfield Hibs players picked up the remaining 8 Celtic players. So take Welsh and Scales out it. There's 8 Celtic players available somewhere, and they were just surrounded. And that, you know, that's a challenge for Celtic. That's Celtic's job to find solutions. And your idea of dropping Callum McGregor deeper to then open the lines of passing is one idea. The other thing is the guys out wide, whether it's Kuhn, Maeda, or whoever else, as well as your more attack-minded midfielders being O'Reilly and Bernardo, they must work so much harder off the ball to try and find this space. Now, James, I don't know at this moment in time if it's I wouldn't say it's a lack of effort. I wouldn't accuse any of the players of lacking effort, but whether it's them individually not having the match intelligence to make those runs, or the manager's not telling them, something's not right. And listen, you, I, and Brydo, none of the three of us are professional football coaches, you know, as much as we'll have strong opinions on it. But there are things that you can see just on a basic level that doesn't seem to be happening at this moment in time.
Yeah, you know, on your stats regards the amount of passes the centre halves are making, that was the same under Ange as well. It's the pace of turnover. That's a huge problem. We're so pedestrian coming out because we want to be absolutely sure that every pass connects. And of course, we too want every pass to connect, but it's not the real world. If you're going to try something, then you know you'll have a percentage chance of that connecting. You know, say it's 70, 80, 90%, whatever, but it's probably not 100. And they're waiting for the 100% passes. And that means that the wingers are getting swamped, they're getting covered, but then they're not moving enough. You know, I think there's got to be constant movement to make yourself available. I mean, that's kind of football 101. You know, it's not really reinventing the wheel here. That's two of those things combined to be a huge problem. Not enough movement from the players from the front side, and not enough pace coming out of defence to start attacks. If you come out of defence and you look to start attacking, there's not someone immediately available, give it to Scales, give it to Welsh, blah, blah, blah. And then by that time, Hibs or whoever the opponent may be, they're settled in their positions. They're not even just covered, they're settled and they're touch tight or wherever they want to be. And then we're getting dictated to. We're playing the game that they want to play, not the game that we want to play.
That's it. Well, without being too offensive to Hibs, we're lowering ourselves to their standards. You know, we're the champions. We're meant to be the big hitters, best team in the country, treble holders, all that stuff. And we're not dictating the play. Harry Kewell left the building a few weeks ago now, but actually Brendan Rodgers has missed a trick not coming to see one of the three of us and getting us in there, Brydo, to do the job, because clearly we know everything there is to know. Now, listen, it's just our opinion, but there are things that, you know, as a fan, you see and you think that Brendan Rodgers would tie us in knots if we asked the very question, but some things that just seem a wee bit apparent that aren't happening. What we'll do, we'll get to the lineup, and there's some good comments coming in terms of what some of the guys would potentially do, and we'll touch on them as well. James, I'll stay with you for that back four. It's Joe Hart, and I really do think Joe Hart deserves credit. He's had some big saves against Aberdeen, Ross County. He made a really important stop right at the death on Wednesday night. It's a ball that's come flashed across the goal low and hard, if you remember it, from out left, and he's just smothered it, and he's gathered it at first time of asking, because somebody, maybe Martin Boyle, but somebody was waiting to pounce, and he didn't give them a sniff. I thought he was very good. He's led by example, and actually it was him and Calmack that were leading the players towards the fans to give them their thanks on Wednesday night. I think he's a real leader for this team, and he is the least of our worries at this moment in time. So let's go to the back four. As per the press conference, Alistair Johnston's picked up some sort of fracture, cheekbone or otherwise. I would say he'll be out for a number of weeks with that. So I'd suggest it's Tony Ralston, but what does the rest of it look like?
we don't know about Welsh. Didn't hear about Welsh. You know, it was a hamstring twinge. He felt it on Wednesday night. You know, that could be something that was just a slight strain that might have cleared up. Roger didn't mention him in the injury part of the press conference, so I'm going to assume he's out and go Nawrocki and Scales in there. And I think he's going to play crazy old Bernabe at the back, at the left back. I mean, it's for want of options as much as anything else. I've put Frame on the bench because I need some kind of option. I don't have a right back option, so I need some kind of full back option. But I think Bernabe will start with Frame on the bench. There's nobody else. Well, you know, you've only got 7 subs. You've got to remember, in the Scottish Cup. So you're lacking some options there. But you're light in a lot of places. So despite the madness that was his performance on Wednesday night, he's in.
He's in by default. Chaos ball is what they're calling it, Brydo. Hard to disagree with that. We've been crying out for a Mitchell Frame appearance. Based on the fact that we've not seen him, James, I can't see him making a 7-man bench, as much as it would make a lot of sense to us. But there must be a reason that he's not getting the nod. And I wonder if I was going to say a more experienced player takes a place in the bench, but who is that? Is that Kobayashi? We're running out of defenders.
Tell me a fullback that can cover.
We don't have one. That's the bottom line. Ralston is the cover at left back and right back, and we're going to use him as cover on Sunday at right back. So, yeah, again, it points back to the criminal transfers between January and summer that we don't have adequate cover. So, Brydo, James has suggested Ralston, Nawrocki, Scales and Bernabe. I think that's the 4 for me as well. What about Nawrocki? Where do you think he's at? He's been very much in and out, hasn't he?
Yeah, which I think makes it difficult for him, especially at centre half. We've spoken 1,000 times now, I think, about the amount of times we've changed the back 4. It's not the back 5. Hearts played every game, but changing that back 4 just doesn't fill us with confidence, and we're seeing that every game. I think James made the point out pre-Hibs that we're having to score goals because we're almost certainly going to concede in that game. We could have conceded a lot more than we did. It's partly down to how we're building up the play, and then we tried to force a pass because it takes so long and the crowd get on their back and they try to force something. I think Nawrocki's, on that note, is the better kind of option. He's passing forward, seems to be quicker, it does seem to be better. So even if Welsh was fit, I still think that based on what we are saying, it'd be almost hypocritical for us to then remove or not have Nawrocki in there, because that's one of his best attributes, is he's passing forward and finding players between the lines and hurting teams. So, and as far as Bernabe's concerned, I mean, I think he's absolutely hopeless. I mean, absolutely hopeless. Somebody said, oh, he was one of our best players on Wednesday. I was like, I just wanted to put my head in the microwave or something. I mean, it was just awful, I felt, and I just wanted our players to stop passing the ball to him. So, but unfortunately, he has to play, and he obviously doesn't fancy the boy Frame, so we could just probably forget even thinking about him, I think. But
just checked it. Craig, I don't know, he's saying one of the commenters, Craig said he might be injured. I checked, he's not played since 5th of January, so he's missed the last 4 games. So Mitchell Frame can't cover. So who's the super cover?
Lagerbielke might come in and be a defensive
on the bench anyway.
I mean, it's just it's bonkers, mate. But I mean, that would be your option in Scales. We go to left back in a series of unfortunate events if that happened, and that takes us back to the commitment issue. And somebody says it's nothing to do with commitment. Yes, it is. Guys like Lagerbielke are not invested in what we're doing, and it just makes me worry. It makes me worry that they're even close to playing. But that would be the back 4 for me. And like I said, you know, just based on where we are, I think having Ralston playing, I know he's limited ability, and the point the guy made is right. You know, the ability levels have been far reduced, but I think it's a 3-point ability, confidence, and commitment, and I think we're lacking on a lot of fronts with that.
Do you know, I think even just by the kind of short debate we've had here just about the potential of who could play in defence, Mitchell Frame, is Kobayashi anywhere, is Lagerbielke, you know, hanging around? And there's a couple of comments. Mazar, good friend of the show, he suggested that Kalmak can play left back, and yes, he can. And Chilpel has recommended that Iwata can play at full back. and I'm sure he can too, although he wasn't great out in that tour of Japan pre-season over at right back. But the bottom line is, whether it's us or the guys joining us here in the comments, we're all guessing at it and trying to patch something together because we just don't have suitable options as a club. And again, this is purely as a result of a lack of investment here in the right areas. We're buying wingers by the bucket load and various other projects, when actually you need to say, where's the real gaps in our squad? Where do we need either cover or improvement? And we've failed to address that. And that's why we find ourselves exactly where we are. So it is what it is, and we don't want to hark on about the transfer stuff. We've spent enough time on that, but treat a transfer window in the way that we have done, you end up with situations like this, where you're facing a very real challenge against a St Mirren side who have had a pretty strong season. I think they're comfortable in 5th place in the league at this moment in time, and they'll see this as a genuine chance at potentially getting a bit of silverware. Why shouldn't they? They're in as good a shape as they've been in a long time under Stevie Robinson, and a lot would argue that Celtic are there for the taking, and mostly of our own doing. Do you know what? I came onto this recording with a mindset of not making it doom and gloom, and I don't think it's been that as such, but it's felt very negative in recent times, and I think we as fans have got a responsibility to try and lift spirits and be positive where possible. But you've got to watch you don't fall into that area of happy clapping and all that kind of stuff. It's certainly not that, but you're trying to be optimistic and upbeat, Brydo, but they don't make it easy for you at times.
No, I mean, we've got to feed off what they produce, and they'll feed off us in the kind of times of hardship, if you like, when we're up against it. The problem domestically is we shouldn't be up against it in most of the games. We should be using the crowd to push them forward, and we should be using all the fans and the songs and the singing and the atmosphere to go and really intimidate and batter teams. And what we've not done, and one thing we did do under Ange, was we beat teams early and the game was done. And then although we died off, it didn't matter because the damage was done. We are scoring goals early though, but we're not bossing it after that. We're not stepping on that. And therefore it does make it difficult. It does make it really difficult to see the positives, because quite frankly, I don't think that there's been enough of them there. What players have got better? What players have improved? O'Reilly did until the break.
Yep.
I just see regression or lack of quality or reduced quality in just about, in fact, pretty much every position. The players getting worse or the players replacing them just far inferior.
Here's a question before we get to the midfield and forwards. I'll come to you, James, for it. There was a bit of chat about the fact that Celtic very deliberately chose to stay in Scotland during the winter break, didn't make any moves, gave the players some time off, and then went right back to it at Lennoxtown. Quite unusual for Celtic to do that. Usually head off to a Dubai or somewhere like that, or get some warm weather training. Rangers go and train, where were they? Spain or something like that. They go and do their thing, get a couple of bounce games. They played 2 games, didn't they? They played Copenhagen back at Ibrox. They played Sunday in the bounce game where ended up behind the fence, all that kind of nonsense. But they were out doing that while we were taking a very different approach. What you're seeing now is they've come back from the break. Certainly wouldn't say they're flying. They're still a limited side, but they've come out full of confidence and they've come out the traps and they've given themselves put themselves in a very good position. Put it that way, or they're certainly in a challenging position. Celtic, yes, we've won 7 and drawn 1 out the last 8. Can't argue with that in terms of scorelines, but in terms of performances and where we're at, we've not come away from the winter break in a particularly good shape. Do you see any correlation with that? The fact that we never went away, we approached it differently? Because traditionally, Celtic come back strong and Rangers don't. Seems to be the opposite this time.
I mean, it's one really to look back on at the end of the season, hopefully in our lessons learned, put in a positive sense. We could do better, even though we won the league. I didn't hear anyone screaming for it at the time. I'll put it that way. Is it the right thing? Probably not. My gut feel is probably not, because it's all about having a demarcation point. This is where you've got to. You're top of the league. You've got points to spare. Let's come out and capitalise on that in the second half of the season. So you're putting a firm line in the sand. If you're around the same environment, do you really get that same fresh perspective? Like a restart? Maybe not. But that has to have been Rodgers' call. I can't see being anything other than that. So why would he pick that? if he didn't think there was a benefit to it, if he thought there was a better way of doing things. He obviously wants to win the league. But you've also got the stink hanging around the club about how they performed the transfer window. I don't think Rodgers is helping by saying the players are of lesser quality than last year. That's really amateur, clumsy stuff for me. A man of his experience coming away with stuff like that, because you're sitting in the dressing room going, what is it me he's talking about? And then your head goes down further. I don't think it's the cleverest. I don't think, unless he's having different conversations with players one-to-one, I don't think that's going to motivate anyone at all. I really don't.
Yeah. I mean, you can see both sides of that, because the first point is, and it doesn't excuse how he's addressed it, he's bang on the money, right? The quality isn't there, but
We know that.
whether you should say that in a press conference, a different story. I'd like to think, and certainly what we hear of as a man manager and a motivator, he does have those separate conversations with players and really energizes the players and motivates them to bring the best of themselves. So, yeah, I wouldn't expect he's cutting about Lennoxtown saying, you guys aren't the greatest, are you? You know, there's no real quality in front of me here today. You know, I don't think he's kind of taken that approach, but players read the comments as much as us as fans read the comments, and I'm sure they'll pick up on that. I would argue, though, that's the challenge. You know, if he's saying that in a general way and you think you might be in that bracket, then raise your game. Because to be at Celtic at all, you must be a talent in itself. So therefore, can you bring more to the party? And the most recent examples would be the wide guys. I mentioned after Hibs that we've got a winger crisis, without putting too fine a point on it. And Nicholas Kuhn's the latest guy who seems to be struggling. Now, I know he's only 3 games in, and there's plenty of time for Nicholas Kuhn to get good. But Celtic don't have plenty of time at this moment to allow players to develop. We've got 13 games to go. We've got at the moment this Scottish Cup tie that's ahead of us. We can't afford to be experimenting and carrying passengers, to use your term, Brydo. So that's where we're at. I've gone off at a tangent. Let's get back on track. Midfield 3. Up until recently, Brydo, I would very much be saying same as McGregor, O'Reilly, Bernardo. McGregor will stay in the 6, no doubt about it. You'd be well within your rights as the manager to drop O'Reilly or Bernardo, because they've not been performing all of a sudden. Both guys were getting great plaudits after the Rangers game and around that time, and rightly so. And both of those players actually were excellent when we beat St Mirren. Was it the 2nd of January? That night we won 3-0 here. But they've not been doing it. And generally speaking, if you're not performing, you should be dropped as much as the next man.
Yeah, that would normally be the case. And that's why squads win tournaments and trophies and leagues, because you're able to do that. But right now, I mean, it also casts question marks over those not getting a game. So Home, for example, you know, is his commitment right at training? Is he, because we've seen glimpses of him. He looks like a decent, you know, technically good football player, highly thought of in his home country. So why is he not getting involved? Why are 3 guys having to pretty much carry the water for 90 minutes every game? Why are they not getting bailed out by guys like who play that position? So he's basically saying, in fact, the last 2 games he's brought on a striker for Bernardo in the form of Ida and then Kyogo on Wednesday. He's had to change it because we were ready to drop points or lose games or draw games. So he's then threw 2 more attacking players. So maybe that's the reason. But Home should be doing more to be in his thoughts and getting on the park, at least for a bit of time. Otherwise, again, what's the point in him being there? It's just mad. So the midfield 3, I think, will be the same. I think Bernardo's a really good football player. I think we should sign him based on the stuff we have seen. And O'Reilly, probably marginally still the player of the year in the country, just based on his form that he had before. But yeah, you would be right. Hatate got dropped at the start of the season, and he's probably our best player in there. So yeah, that's clubs of the size of Celtic should not be relying on 3 players for those 3 positions to play every minute, every game, and go and do it time and time again. It just shouldn't be the way it is, and unfortunately it is.
Yeah, they shouldn't be. Yet it looks like they'll probably be the 3 that we go with on Sunday, James. You'll see the comment on the screens from George Barr, and George mentioned that O'Reilly might be feeling the pressure of the big price tag. And whether it's that or just the fact that, you know, that would go through your head, the fact that you've decided between yourself and the club to knock back a life-changing move, life-changing money to Atletico Madrid and everything that might have brought his career. Now, I think and hope for his sake that move will come about again, or a move like that will come about again at some point in the future for O'Reilly. But you just don't know. And players at times will doubt themselves and go through the motions. And as much as O'Reilly's a balanced guy, he's very much into the holistic approach of meditation and Pilates and all these things to make himself a better player. It might well be on his mind. He's at the moment, maybe just going through the motions and thinking, should I have taken that move? Do you think it's affecting him? Or do you think that something's affecting him? Put it that way. Do you think that's what it might be?
I don't. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that lives with regret. He'll have taken that as a positive that teams like Atletico are in for him, and he'll get his chance in the summer to go to Atletico or wherever it may be, and he'd go with their best wishes or reluctant best wishes. I think it's more like Mazar saying in the comments there. We were at that Ross County game. He should not have been played on. He should have been off there and then.
Yeah.
Probably anyone who's played any kind of sport has had that kind of injury. It is a sore thing, and the muscle needs rested straight away. It can't be go and play. I think he played another 60 minutes of football after that, and he's played every game since. I think the doctors would be obviously the support staff would be around him to say, here's where you're at and stuff like that. You can just let us know if you're feeling that or whatever. Maybe he's not going to say, but I think I lean towards that than regretting that he didn't take a move, because I don't think he's the kind of person that would see any benefit of that kind of attitude. If anything, it makes your chance of such a move in the summer much less likely. And he seems, like you say, a very rounded, holistic type of guy. So all those things put together, I lean towards the injury. But something's not right.
Yeah, maybe it's a combo of the two. The injury was, it looked like he took a knee to the back, something like that, 30 minutes into that Ross County game. He's played every minute since. He's not even, David Mitchell in the comments suggested that it's O'Reilly who should be coming off instead of Bernardo at times. And you'd have to agree with that. You can't look at the fact that he's been fantastic so far and allow that to be a reason not to take him off at times when he's not performing well. And if a guy, whether it's O'Reilly or Kyogo or Callum McGregor, nobody should be beyond that. And I think at the moment, it's easier to take Bernardo off than Matt O'Reilly. And that's a call for the manager to make. But I think he should be considering his options there. Maybe there's a few folks, pretty keen to see Odin Thiago Home get some minutes. And maybe we do this on Sunday. But therein lies the question, Brydo, if you start to play anything less than your strongest side or what's deemed to be your strongest side and don't get the win, then you could be in trouble. Let's go to the front line. I have no idea what this is going to be. And we're basing our formation here today on a 4-3-3. There's various suggestions about should we shake it up? Should we go with a 4-4-2 that finished the game on Wednesday? Potentially a 3-5-2. And I wouldn't be against a 3-5-2 because we've got nothing good at left back just now, and at least it would allow to move away from that. But I think he'll most likely stick with his 4-3-3 at least to start with. So what does that front three look like for you, Brydo?
I think firstly, I'd like my wingers to be playing on the right side of their strongest foot. I mean, I just think this keep tucking inside. I've mentioned it 2 or 3 times now. Now, if you have good fullbacks that can give you proper overlaps every time, then that's different. That offers the width. So on that, and based on the restricted players that I don't think Abada should be anywhere near the team, I'm afraid. And I don't want to say that, but I don't think he should be. I just think he just looks all out of sorts and just we can't take, again, another passenger. So for me, it'd be Palmer, and I'd play him on the right-hand side and Maida on the left. And if you want to talk about the striker as well, I'd be playing Kyogo if he's fit. The reason Kyogo's not scored goals, again, either, whatever his name is, he's not had any chances either. It's the way we're playing. It does not help whoever's in that top spot. So for me, Kyogo would play. So it would be Palmer, Kyogo and Maida. And if they flipped Palmer and Maida, then so be it. But it can't be Kuhn after Wednesday. I thought it was a disgraceful performance for a guy who should be batting down doors and throwing folk out his way to demand the strip. That was his chance to do that, and it was the complete opposite. I thought it was so negative, and probably more negative than I'm being right now.
And that's the thing, any new player, you want to give him your full support, and he will be supported, and he was supported on Wednesday night, but he was also awful. It was terrible, a really shocking performance. It maybe just feels like this at the time. You're watching that game, and it just felt that every time he got the ball, he either gave it away or played a really safe and cheap pass back into the midfield or back to the defence. So I don't think he can start on Sunday, James. I think he's way behind the curve at this moment in time. Brydo suggested Palma, Kyogo, Maeda, and I'm all for wingers playing on the correct side, a right foot on the right and a left on the left. Just so happens that Maeda's not left or right-footed, James. So that's a question mark for us. You've also got into the mix Owen Yang being back available. Brendan Rodgers says he trained well yesterday, I think. They've arrived back fresh from the Asian Cup. Not a lot of minutes, for either player out there for South Korea. I don't expect any of them to start, but they could be an option at some point, depending on how things are going.
I'm going to just disagree with you. So there.
Okay.
Kuhn has started one game of football for Celtic. It's too early to be writing him off and benching him and all these things. I'm going to take Brydo. He prefers to play in the left wing. We're going to put him in the left wing, and I'm going to put Yang on the right wing. He was getting rave reviews in the Asian Cup. They've trained, so they're back in the squad. They're training with the squad. So let's take the positives from Yang's good displays over the last couple of weeks, and let's get Kuhn a bit more game time and play him on the wing that he wants to play on. I think we have to, if I had Jota on the bench, 2 Jotas on the bench, I've got a different decision to make. But I don't see anything in Palma. Abada is out. I think we're all happy with that. Vata, I've got him on the bench, but not starting. Maeda, too much crazy. Maybe just needs to kind of ease himself back in. So we need to keep the ball in the final third. And with Maeda, that's not happening. I love his defensive qualities, but that's not the target for tomorrow. So I'm going to go for Sunday, sorry. So I'm going to go Kuhn on the left, Yang on the right. And I'm going to stick with Ida up front, Brydo, not Kyogo. Man's on fire.
James, I will give you £10 or to the charity of your choice if Kuhn and Yang start as Celtic's wingers on Sunday. Nobody's writing Kuhn off. He's a talent. I think we know he's got something to offer, and he showed a bit of drive against Aberdeen to get the equaliser. But I also don't think you can reward that performance with another start. I think it's too risky for Brendan Rodgers to play him again, given that he's clearly struggling to get up to pace. Brendan Rodgers mentioned in the press conference that they'd spent some time with him going over his moments or a term of that nature, in terms of they must have sat down with a laptop and went, look what you're doing there, and look what you're doing there, and look what you're doing there. And that's all about developing a player and improving a player. And I think may well come good. I wouldn't know for sure at this moment in time, but I think he needs to be taken out the firing line just quite quickly based on what we've seen the other night. Yang, yes, folks are excited about him, but again, it reeks of desperation. And maybe we are in a desperate state. If you bring a guy back from the Asian Cup and throw him right in, I'd be very surprised at it. But that said, and this is why I just passed the buck and gave this decision to you lads, because none of the wingers are performing. Nobody can complain. Maeda, Palma, Kuhn, and Abada is he can't feature either. Nobody can complain as a wide man at Celtic if you're not featuring. James Forrest isn't even making benches now. We're in a hell of a place. We've got so many wingers. It just happens that none of them happen to be any good at this moment in time. So I don't know how I'm going to summarise, because I think we're pretty much in agreement in terms of the back four: Ralston, Navrocki, Scales and Bernabe. Midfield 3, McGregor, O'Reilly and Bernardo. Front 3, take your pick: Palma, Yang, Kyogo, Ida, Maeda, Kuhn, whoever. So I don't know. Let's touch briefly on St Mirren, and we're going to wrap things up in about 5 minutes, but let's touch briefly on them. Decent season, as mentioned, Brydo. They'll be feeling confident under Stevie Robinson. They are 5th in the league, but comfortably 5th, and I think they're just a point behind Kelly in 4th. They'll be gunning for a European place. That must now be their new target. I'm not sure if it will have been at the start of the season. It will be now. And as I mentioned to James, the very real prospect of picking up silverware, yes, Celtic is a huge challenge for a club like St Mirren, but they shouldn't be afraid of anybody that's left in this this cup tournament. And I think we're in for a real tough test on Sunday. Celtic obviously won their 3-0 last time out, blew out the trap, scored in the first minute, the 6th minute, and they get a man sent off before half time. But it's a real tough proposition for us.
Me, sorry, mate. I thought it was for James. Sorry, mate. It's tough. And Robinson's, I think he's a good coach. I mean, did he not get to 2 cup finals with Motherwell? And his stint there as well. We played them in 2 finals 2 seasons in a row. So I think he knows what he's doing. He knows how to set up a team. Probably similar to Derek McInnes. They know how to get the best out of the players they've got. And it's not going to be easy at all. And when we play these teams in these cup games, it's essential they've nothing to lose. So it makes them a really dangerous opponent. And they're at home, and they'll probably sell the tickets and they bother. So it'll be a good atmosphere, and it'll be a really, really tough test because of perhaps where we are at the minute. I think it'd be a tough test no matter where we were. If we were flying high and doing really well, it would still be a potential banana skin. For me, it's a proper game, and we're going to have to find a way of getting through it. And I just read a comment. I think Frank said it's a disposable trophy. No, there's no trophies disposable, and certainly doing that adds to the momentum of the teams that we're trying to beat. So no, it's incredibly important. It might be a wee breath of fresh air away from the league pressures, but at the same time, there's no way that we can just go, it's a Scottish Cup, it doesn't matter. Well, no, absolutely not. Because that just gives momentum and impetus to the teams that we're trying to beat. So it'll be tough, it'll be really tough, and he sets his team up well. The good thing is that Kwon has been so good for them, he needs to come out. And that's obviously a big bonus for us. Maybe we can put our strip on and just play. I don't know if there's a UEFA rule that allows that.
There's no doubt that, I think Kwon's started the last 4 games for them, and we've obviously got our concerns, reservations about whether he'll make it at Celtic, but he's clearly become a feature, James, there at St Mirren, and that disrupts the pack. They've got a decision to make there. You're on taking the trophy as well, James. I said myself that if Celtic happened to lose in the Scottish Cup but then going to win the league, if somebody offers me that right now, I'm taking it all day long. But Celtic's players and Brendan Rodgers cannot approach this with any less intensity, any less professionalism than any other game. So I'll come to you for your comments on that in just a second. In the meantime, I'll be getting the scoreline predictions from James and Brydo just shortly, and let us know in the comments what you guys think the score will be as well. James, your thoughts on the Scottish Cup trophy?
It's a Celtic trophy. It's the first trophy I've ever seen us won. We've all had great days of hand in winning that. Now, looking at things from a balance perspective, if you offer me the league or the Scottish Cup, of course, I'm taking the league all day this season. But winning games creates momentum to win games. So continuing in the Scottish Cup gives you that positivity throughout the team, especially if you're playing good football. It's different football, bear in mind, you're not going to come up against low blocks because both teams have got to win. I don't really see St Mirren playing. I don't know if we're replaying at this stage. I don't think so. And I wouldn't see St Mirren going for that kind of approach anyway. So we're now at a stage where both teams are going to try and win the game of football, which bizarrely isn't something we come up against all that often. Most of the time, it's a team trying to stop us winning and not really having any great intentions on winning themselves, maybe grabbing a draw. So that allows you to play with a bit more freedom. There's going to be space at the back that isn't there in a league game. So what can you learn from that? What movement can the players bring into their game that they've not been bringing in up until Wednesday night there? So no, I think it's a real opportunity, Scottish Cup, for so many reasons. If we got to the final and we didn't win it and we won the league, I'm a very happy boy, but we push all the way.
Yeah, I think so. You'll maybe see the comments coming in, but a lot of love for the Scottish Cup from various folk. Keith McLachlan says, Scottish Cup's my favourite trophy. Always loved it since I was a wee guy. Obviously, the league is priority, but the Scottish Cup is right up there for me. I think most of us would agree with that. You think of big moments, centenary Scottish Cup, James, that kind of thing. Tom Rogic's goal to clinch the treble, Scottish Cup stuff. 1995, Pierre Van Hooijdonk, and various others since then. Celtic have got a huge history and affinity with the Scottish Cup, and I don't think any of us want to give it up lightly. So yes, priority league, Scottish Cup not far behind, and I think we need to give it every respect here on Sunday. Brydo, we're starting to wrap things up, so let's go for your scoreline prediction. Scoreline and why.
I'm going for the same result as Wednesday night at 2-1, simply because I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet, but I just think we'll keep fighting our way through it fighting our way towards form maybe, or fighting our way till players come back. And like I say, just I said this at the top of the show, it's fight our way through it as opposed to playing our way through it. There's still plenty of players there that can do the damage, and they can play far, far, far better. But I just look at that defence that does it. I wake up in cold sweats at 5 a.m. or something like that, thinking about Burnaby playing left back. So I can't see us not conceding, but I can certainly still see us winning, and I'm certainly not going to come on here and say we're going to get beat. So I'm saying 2-1 just because of lack of creativity, but we can still fight our way through it.
Did I hear you say a turgid 2-1, or did I make that word up for you?
You made that up for me, but do you know what? If I could borrow it and go back and say it again, a turgid 2-1 victory in Paisley.
It's all yours. James, what about yourself? What do you think?
I think St Mirren will score 2. I think we will score 4. I see it being an open game. And a lot of things have not been clicking, starting to click. Bigger squad, fresh legs coming back in. It's just the opportunity we need. I think Sunday's come right at the right time for us. So 4-2 for me, and romping into the next round.
I like it. We could. I was going to say double or quits on that £10 bet. If it's 4-2, I'll give you another tenner. You could be 20 quid up by the end of the weekend.
I'm not giving you any money, by the way. This is just money you're giving to me. I'm not offering any back.
I would be along the lines of Brydo, but to freshen up, you never know. Celtic can click. You've got an Adam Eder who'll be feeling great about himself. He spoke really well actually after Hibs. He clearly wants to be here, and that's a huge plus. You know, different players will go to different clubs throughout their career and say, I'm really looking forward to the challenge here. He's got a genuine affinity with Celtic, you know, coming from where he comes from over in Cork, and I really buy into, you know, his enthusiasm for Celtic. Guys like him and others could click on the day, and if that's the case, and we know that's the case, if Celtic come together, we can be very hard to stop. So I'm going to go for 3-1, and let's see how it plays out. Brydo, your final thoughts before we close this one off?
Yeah, just it's a tough period for us, and I just hope that we can meet the challenge and just get through another tough game, and hopefully start producing better football that we can be proud of, as opposed to what we've seen so far. So I'm still optimistic we can do that, but I just think first and foremost I want to see the team have that kind of aggression that we've seen perhaps in the Glasgow derby, the 3-0, that type. Callum McGregor leading the way, you know, snarling in people's faces and stuff like that, and letting them know that they're not in for an easy ride, no matter how tough it's been for us. So I just want us to fight it and just keep fighting, and eventually take our chances when they come to win 4-2, according to James.
Yeah, you'll see the comment, James, but Maestro 95 has suggested you get drug tested for your prediction. I presume it's for you, but anyway, you can let us know. James, your own final thoughts as we wrap it up. I think we've got Mazar agreeing with you. He says 4-2. Smell of Glove says 3-2. So, you know, they're thereabouts with you. So your own final comments.
I think it really is an opportunity. You know, there's been such a cloud over the club. A lot of it self-inflicted, a lot of it off the park, a lot of it on the park. All of it self-inflicted, actually. Some on the park, some off the park. But this is a chance to get away from that. You're playing against a football team that isn't going to be locked in defence. They're going to come out. I really like the way Steve Robinson's sets St Mirren up. Talented guy, does try and play football. So I think it's going to be a really entertaining game. And just go and play with freedom, play with a smile on your face, enjoy it, and take that into the rest of the league campaign. 13 games to go in the league, and Sunday will take you a long way there.
Yeah, it's you know, it's one to look forward to from a fan point of view as well as a player point of view. It's a bit of a break from the, as I say, the kind of stress and pressures of what the league has been. And I know we've said it on a number of occasions now, but it is the kind of game that could kickstart the rest of the season. So, James, you're bang on the money. 13 league games to go, and however many we may have left in the Scottish Cup. Thanks to James and Brydo for joining me here, as always, and to yourselves, particularly the guys who have joined us in the live comments. It really makes a big difference to the show, and we appreciate all your efforts there. We'll be back on Sunday with the Final Whistle show shortly after the game. But in the meantime, Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll see you then.